Hello, good evening. Aw, I'm glad you made it, Patty. And some other folks are here. It's almost 7:30. I'll just wait a moment before I start, just in case some people are arriving right at 7:30. Want to see the back, Patty? There you go. Ready? What? There you go. Couldn't capture it on photo, so my new hairdo. All right, welcome, folks, to our True North Insight Dharma COVID Dharma time. My name is Jill Davey, and I'm one of the Dharma teachers with True North Insight. And it seems I'm begun a little mini series here exploring the hindrances. Last week we spoke about and practiced with the hindrance of desire, and this is the second of the classical 5 hindrances. Thanks, Monty. That show up for all of us in our practice. And so I just wanted to delve in a little more deeply about these hindrances. Of course, they show up in our formal practice when we're trying to do seated meditation, or hi, Terry, good evening. But also they show up very, very much in daily life and all of our interactions. So important to just keep looking at them over and over and over until they are no more. So this second of the 5 hindrances is aversion, as the title of the link was. It's also kind of sometimes called ill will, which was a little annoying because they're different Pali words. So, you can see how ill will and aversion can be lumped together, but they're actually different. And truthfully, I didn't have time to try to figure out which one is the one that's in the hindrance, to use Vyapada, which is ill will, or Pataga, which is aversion. Joseph Goldstein, in his book Mindfulness, uses the word aversion, but others say ill will. So bothers me not knowing exactly what it should be. Oh, aversion. What? Right there. So this Tralag Kyabgon, I don't know this teacher. Tralag Kyabgon says this second hindrance is ill will. It is the opposite of the first hindrance that we talked about last Wednesday, desire. And it's brought about by aversion rather than attraction, as desire attraction. Ill will refers to all kinds of thoughts related to wanting to reject, feelings of hostility, resentment, hatred, and bitterness. When they arise, we should take note of them, not necessarily suppressing them, but seeing how they arise. So it's really important to be able to know what's happening when it's happening, which is not easy because it's a very strong mind and emotion state. And as much as possible, just knowing. And then if we can, with time, with practice, start to see how it's arising. And then we'll also be talking about how it can be like either nourished or denourished, or unfed, so it doesn't keep arising. it ranges really everything from, well, patiga, the word for aversion, actually means striking against. It's like, that's really striking out physically or verbally, emotionally, energetically. It's quite a strong, aggressive act towards someone else. So it has that energy. And then it also has repulsion, which is kind of interesting. These are both aspects of aversion, right? You can see it's like, oh, I don't want that. But then it also has this part of attacking. Like repulsion is repugnance, very similar. Anger, um, hatred, which is another word, dosa. But it also can have these milder forms of just animosity, just like not being kind, or annoyance, irritation. So all of these are also part of this second hindrance of just being annoyed and irritated and bothered and don't like it and grumpy and, all the ways that can show up. So it's interesting that something just like irritation, we might think that's kind of innocuous, but here it is kind of lumped in all together with striking against. So that's something important to notice, I think, that how these are related, how it's a similar energy in our bodies, our hearts, our minds, even to be wrapped up in a state of annoyance. And because even, so we might say, what's the harm? I'm not hurting anybody. But if we allow ourselves to look closely, even at annoyance and irritation, we can learn so much about our own aversive states and how painful it is, and how it does lead to harm for ourselves and for others. It just reminds me of when I was on the 3-month retreat, and it was in the second half of the retreat, and there was a fair bit of awareness and some calm and some mindfulness and, just some ability to see the triggers that were going on, which did not stop. They kept coming, but maybe less frequency and less, more awareness with them. And I remember this one experience of sitting. There was beautiful. There's just a stunning forest there. That's so. This is at IMS, pardon me, Insight Meditation Society in Massachusetts, and there's just an extraordinary forest in the back there, and great places to practice and walk and all of that. And there's this particular cliff further back that has a bench that is a lovely place to sit. And I think there's some blankets and a cushion that are kept in a plastic bag. So if it's cool or whatever, you can really get comfortable back there. It's kind of sitting under a little bit of a rock edge and looking out over the forest. Yeah, so it's a bit of a walk to get back there. I'm just reading my notes about it. Oh, yeah. So, there's clinging, there's some attachment to, I'm going to get back there and have a nice sit at that bench. And so all the wander back into there, and then there was someone already there. And they were kind of hogging the whole bench. They weren't sitting to one side. They were like plunked right in the middle of the bench, and they had both the blankets and the cushion just for themselves. and there were two other people just kind of perched on rocks nearby, like really close by and could be seen. And I was a little miffed that this person wasn't sharing the bench or sharing a blanket or anything or a cushion. Yeah. So I also perched myself on a rock nearby and quite uncomfortably. But then there was this, once I settled down a little bit, I was still irritated. I remember having this conversation kind of with the aware part of myself. It was like, see, awareness, this is what mild irritation feels like. Check it out. And I was actually like really kind of enjoying it. It was like a curiosity and interest and investigation. It was like, because there was a fair bit of awareness stability. And so it was like, look, you can just feel this. This is what irritation feels like. Check it out. Feel what it's like in the body, in the mind. Isn't this wild? And I hope it doesn't sound too like, dualistic. It wasn't that, but it really lightened and eased and opened up the attachment and aversion that was in my mind and heart and body. And because of the curiosity to just be like, feel this. Look at how much agitation there is and story, and isn't that amazing? I don't know if that story makes sense for you, but it was a really helpful moment for me in terms of how to maybe first just name what's going on, and then just bringing awareness to knowing how it is was enough to unhook from it, and it passed. And then it ended up, being of course, impermanent, but actually a very lovely sit, because then the person on the bench left, and then I got on the bench and signaled to another woman to come over and share the bench. And it was really lovely to just sit in silence and have company, and to feel how the ending of that aversion felt. Okay, so back to this hindrance. Of course, it's a hindrance because it hinders clear seeing. Same as last week, we talked about desire. I'm amused every time I hear myself say we talked about, when it's just me. But I do feel like I'm talking with you. Yeah, I wish we could chat more. And so, okay, last week talking about desire, I talked about that bowl of water that's used as a mirror to, to look into, and still water and see your reflection, and how the water would be colored with all these colored dyes that are dropped into it, so you can't see clearly. You can't see through. There's no clear seeing, and there's just desire looking at all the pretty. And so the simile for aversion and ill will is when the water is boiling. Yeah, so like a pot of water that's on the boil, seething and bubbling and steaming. And again, we can't see clearly because it's obstructed by the anger, by the ill will, by the aversion, whatever form it's taking. And then we also can't see the escape from the arisen ill will. We can't see clearly how to get out of it because we're in that state. And so the first thing is to acknowledge it, know what's going on, because then awareness is there. So as soon as you're able to say, oh, this is whatever variation of ill will it is, oh, it feels like this. Now already awareness is watching that, seeing that, knowing that. And the water starts to calm immediately. Of course, it can boil up again, but we'll talk about this. Um, hmm, uh, 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 Ajahn Brahmavamso says this: ill will refers to the desire to punish, hurt, or even destroy. It includes sheer hatred of a person or even a situation, and it can generate so much energy that it is both seductive and addictive. This is so important. You wouldn't imagine like something that's so painful to feel in your own body, so painful, the harm that's caused to others, that it could be both seductive and addictive. Isn't that interesting? But it can generate so much energy that it can have this quality. And there's one of the similes, and this is in the Samyutta Nikaya, refers to anger with its honeyed crest and poisoned root. So this means like the honeyed tip, the tip of like an arrow, a dart, with its honeyed tip and its poisoned root. That's speaking to this thing that's seductive and addictive, that there's something satisfying about allowing ourselves to just blow off the steam, to just, react and have that energy move through. And that's kind of this poisoned crest, honeyed crest and poisoned root, as it's referred to in the Samyutta Nikaya. Yeah. This particularly shows up when we're feeling a type of ill will or aversion that is feels justified, where we feel, hard done by, or some self-referencing, self-pity perhaps, and of course blaming someone else. And so then if the storyline is fed with that a lot, then it gets into this thing where there's a desire to hurt with our words or actions or energy even, or even our thoughts. Thoughts can be very, very powerful. So Ajahn Brahmavamso goes on, at the time it always appears justified, for such is its power that it easily corrupts our ability to judge fairly. It says how powerful this energy is. We can't even see clearly if this is, how it's going to be so harmful, and it would justify. It's justified. It also includes ill will, includes ill will towards oneself. This shows up a lot as guilt and shame and judgmental habits and thoughts of mind towards ourselves. And this really is self-punishing. It has that aspect of striking against. It's a way to harm ourselves, in a way to, there's no possibility of happiness when we're in that kind of state. It's just so painful. And then in our formal practice of meditation, ill will can just show up as aversion. Well, it can show up as the thoughts of ruminating over somebody that's done something, or revenge, something we're going to do to someone. But it often shows up in a more subtle way of not liking these sensations in the body, not liking noises that are happening around us, aversion to the object of meditation, Um, and this type of aversion in our formal practice makes it so that then the attention awareness is forced to wander elsewhere. You know, it's like, this is no good, I don't like this is too difficult, too painful, too whatever, and our attention goes. There's things that feed ill will, that many things that cause it to rise and grow. And some of it are these thoughts that we feed it with of justification and self-referencing. And so in the Samyutta Nikaya, again, it says, there are objects causing aversion. Frequently giving unwise attention to them is the nourishment for the arising of ill will that has not yet arisen, and for increase and strengthening of ill will that has arisen. So it's talking here about how maybe ill will hasn't arisen in any particular moment. It's not there right now. But if we frequently give attention, unwise attention, to certain thoughts, feeding certain thoughts of, you know, whatever, all the ways it can show up, of judgment or harshness or hostility or blame, then it will cause ill will to arise. And they will also cause the strengthening and increasing of ill will that has arisen. So this is so important to see what's feeding it, what's giving rise to it, and then what's feeding it. You know, the thoughts that are looping. And so, of course, then there's ways to denourish ill will, to help it subside, to help it pass and abate. It is the nature of everything to arise and pass. And so when something's sticking, you need to look and say, why is that sticking? Oh, maybe it's because I'm shoveling handfuls of coal into this fire. I'm using the bellows and keeping it going. Yeah. So to bring an end to ease, to stop fueling ill will, we can practice, of course, metta. Loving kindness is an obvious antidote to ill will and aversion. But actually, all the Brahma Viharas, the divine abodes, which is interesting, they kind of attune to different aspects of ill will. So I kind of listed like just a few of the many ways it can show up. But in the Majjhima Nikaya, it says this, that cultivating the loving kindness meditation, ill will disappears. And then cultivating the meditation on compassion, which is karuna, cruelty disappears. If we're feeling compassion for the suffering of others, we don't want to be cruel. Cruelty disappears because, you know, we can feel what suffering feels like in our own body, and we don't want that for anyone else. Cultivating meditation on mudita, sympathetic joy, or resonant harmonic joy. Listlessness disappears. That's hard to say. Listlessness. So listlessness is a type of aversion in our practice. It's like a dullness, a lack of energy, a lack of joy. And so meditation on joy helps to counter that. And then last, Brahmavihara is equanimity, upekkha. And it's said that cultivating that meditation, anger disappears. Yeah, so that when we're equanimous, we can still feel hurt, and we can still respond to hurt, and we can still take action in the world, but without anger, without, yeah. Another simile of anger is that it's like, it's described as anger towards another is just as if someone wishing to hit another person takes hold of glowing coals, burning hot coals. You know, you want to pick them up to throw them at someone, and of course you're burning yourself. Or a heated iron rod that you're going to hit someone with. It burns you. Or they say picking up excrement. So, yeah, okay, enough about that. This is interesting. This is from the commentaries, and it says this. I found this helpful. Being angry with another person, what can you do to them? Can you destroy their virtue or their other good qualities? No. Have you not come to your present state by your own actions, and will also go hence according to your own actions? Anger towards another is, as I said, just as if you're picking up hot coals or iron rod or excrement. And in the same way, if another person is angry with you, what can they do to you? Can they destroy your virtue or your other good qualities? No, they cannot. They too have come to their present state by their own actions and will go hence according to their own actions. Like an unaccepted gift, or like a handful of dirt thrown against the wind, their anger will fall back on their own heads. You know, we think we're going to get someone, and you know, what harm are we really doing? If they have good qualities and virtue, that's not something you can take away from someone. And likewise, if someone's being ill will towards you, and you nourish these qualities, skillful qualities within yourself, then it's just as if they've thrown a handful of dirt against the wind and it blows back towards them. Or like an unaccepted gift. Someone tries to give you a gift. No, thank you. Not taking that. No, thanks. I'm good. You can have it. You can return that one. Regifting. Helpful, I find, to give yourself that image, that permission, like, no, thank you. I'm saying that lightly, and I'm aware that this is not a light and easy thing to do. It's not that easy to do. Okay. Oh yeah, this is really good. Love this. You're gonna love this. This is from Joseph Goldstein's book, Mindfulness. Very big book. Wonderful, wonderful book. It's got everything in here, really accessibly written, and but a lot is here. Take your time. So this is great. And so Joseph shares this Zen story because sometimes he uses this as a note for himself, to just note when he's caught in an aversive state, ill will or whatever way that it's showing up. And he says that just using the note painted tiger is enough sometimes for it to release. So I'll share this story with you then of the painted tiger, which some of you may have heard. There was a hermit monk living in a cave in the mountains of Japan. He was a talented artist, and over time he painted a picture of a tiger on the wall of the cave. He was extremely meticulous in his work. It took him several years to finish. When it was finally done, the tiger was so realistic that when he looked at it, he became frightened. So he spent all these years meticulously painting this super realistic looking tiger. And when it was done, it was so real that it scared him. And so Joseph says, I have found just noting painted tiger a good reminder that when we get angry at something, we are remembering or anticipating something that has happened or we think might happen. In that moment, we're simply getting angry at a thought in the mind. It's just a painted tiger. Like we're really, it's just hard to see, but it's so helpful. It's so liberating. Think about it. When you're caught in aversion, it's really a thought. You're really getting angry at a thought. Do you see? It's just a thought about something or someone. It's just a thought. They probably wouldn't say it's true. It's not necessarily true. It's not always true. It's not subjectively true. At that moment, it's actually just a thought about something. It doesn't mean that some things aren't harmful. I'm not saying that. And so in those moments, we're really just getting angry at a thought. Does that make sense? It's just a painted tiger. You see? And then he goes on to say how this thought triggers this huge chain reaction of sensations and more thoughts and fueling thoughts and justifying thoughts and past and future and huge proliferation, and then often acting out with our speech and actions. So, it takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of formal practice and stillness and awareness to be able to catch it in time and say, that's interesting. It was actually just a thought. Like it's just something I'm thinking about right now that's causing, fueling, feeding all of this really aversive state. Okay. Yeah. So to work with this, there's a lot of tools, all the Brahma Viharas I mentioned. The first thing is just knowing it, naming, like soft note of aversion or ill will or hatred, whatever word you want to use. If it's still sticky, you might need to look a little more deeply at what is the flavor? Like which version of ill will is this? Because you might find there's just some subtler layer underneath it. Yeah. So working with the Brahma Viharas, naming it, feeling the sensation, because then awareness has come to sit on the bench with you to say, oh, this is what it feels like. And already it's not being fueled. It's actually the flames are being put out. Yeah. So being mindful of it without adding judgment, without adding more self-hatred about this showing up. It's just a conditioned arising. Maybe investigating a little more deeply. And looking, you might be able to see the relationship to it. How am I fueling it, feeding it, justifying it, blaming others? Is there an underlying fear that's being blocked? Yeah, these are not easy things to do, but So worthwhile. So worthwhile. Okay. I think we will practice. So at first we'll just practice settling with an anchor, and then noticing any, it'll probably be, well, might not be, noticing any aversions or ill will, and see if we can just attend to it. Be curious about it. Invite ourselves to sit beside that and open to it. Thich Nhat Hanh really teaches about embracing it, like hugging it in and really letting the metta kind of an awareness dissolve it. Yeah. And then we might slide into a little bit of metta or compassion phrases just to help transform that energy. Yeah. So we'll start with a poem. I linked it down below, along with the links for Donna's support, as you're able, or if you're able. Thank you for that. And this poem is from Rosemary Watola Tromer. It's called Relearning. And she wrote this poem inspired by a line from someone else. Pardon me, my nose is itchy. Richard Brendan wrote, "The world doesn't want to be saved, it wants to be loved, and that's how you save it." And so from that line, she was inspired to write this poem, Relearning. And isn't that the way it is? The truth that opened me yesterday now puts me in shackles. Whatever I knew about saving the world must be lost. Today, the only truth is the invitation to fall in love with the world as it is. Fall in love with the thorn, the sting, the loss, the ringing in the ears after the shot. Fall in love with all I'd rather not. Easier when it's metaphor, harder when it's wound, hate, anger, dark snarl of contempt hurled in the face. Harder when love feels far away. There's only one way then to save the world. How we stand in the middle of it all, lost. How we love anyway. Beautiful. Thank you, Rosemary. Again. Okay, so let's practice with this, because it needs practice. Can't really undo this deep groove without some stillness, without some quiet, without some presence. So encouragement to stay tuned in here and to put down other distractions if you can. Closing other parts of any browser that you may be on or tablet, and just put it down. And just using your hearing perception and your feeling perception as you settle into your body. Find a place that feels comfortable for you to rest your eyes. It's also fine to lay down for this practice and rest, bringing that kind attention to your own body and heart and mind. So you're just resting your eyes, your face, your shoulders, a little bit of softening if it feels safe for you around the area of the heart and the belly. Feel the ground under the seat and the feet. When you're ready, choosing an anchor for your practice. If your anchor is the breath sensation, or it could be hearing, could be just the anchor of the sensations of the body, sitting. So just choosing something that is your resting place that you come back to when awareness has moved away. Really paying attention to that anchor, just noticing what's coming and going in the sensations of the body or hearing or breath. And perhaps seeing if there's a relationship between how the attention moves away from the object, so your resting attention, and perhaps a little irritation or a little boredom, a little something not quite good enough or interesting enough to just rest there. Ill will can appear just as a dislike towards the meditation object itself, forcing the attention to wander elsewhere. Can you just love this full experience of a breath or sounds or body? And it may be for some of us there's a stronger state of ill will showing. There can be some residue from something that's happened earlier, or aversion, anticipation of something projecting into future, or there can be these thoughts turned towards ourselves that are unkind. And see if it helps to see it as a painted tiger, that in this moment it's actually just a thought. And if that soft note of painted tiger is not enough to stop fueling that flame, then you might need to look a little more deeply and see if there's some other feeding of the strong emotion, justifying it, blaming, some underlying fear that's fueling it. What does this feel like in the body when we allow this to be known? Where is the contraction? What is the sensation? Is there numbness? Is there heat? Is there heaviness or sharp sensation? And what happens with those sensations when they're known, when awareness just feels the sensation? Now bring awareness to rest in the area of the heart center. Feeling any sensations that are there without judgment or preference. numbness or heartache or joy or cold, heat, open, contracted. And feel how the honeyed tip and poison root may have affected you, or the picking up glowing coals or excrement. Feel how ill will, anger, aversion, and even its subtle forms of irritation uh, have harmed you. And wish for yourself, may my suffering ease, may my suffering end, may I be free from suffering, may I be happy, may I be safe from self-harmful thoughts and angers and judgments. May I be peaceful. Just feel into and rest with this area of the heart center and any wishes that resonate for you. Wishes of kindness, compassion, the wish for joy. And in the same way, we know the harm of these states for our own being. And we know it's as harmful for any other being. And so you could now gently bring into your awareness someone you know that has been hurt by ill will, anger, judgment, etc. And similarly, wishing for them, may you be safe. May you be free from suffering and the pain of these inflictions, afflictions. May you be happy. And in your own words, any wishes like this for other, still feeling the sensations at your own heart. And we know that all beings wish to be safe, to be free from suffering and pain, to be happy, and to know equanimity, So we can extend our awareness to each other here, sharing this practice, and others in future listening. And like pebbles, a handful of pebbles thrown into a pond, the ripples from each of us and all of those that surround us. So all of our friends and family and co-workers, community. And let the heart just feel a sense of wish for their safety and happiness and freedom from ill will. And then each of those beings rippling around each of those beings to all the beings they know and all the lives their lives have touched. And beyond the place of mental concepts into the place of the heart awareness. May all beings everywhere be free from suffering. May all beings everywhere be safe from anger and ill will and hatred. May all beings everywhere know true happiness and joy and the causes and conditions for the arising of happiness and joy. May all beings everywhere know true peace and equanimity. Some of the other qualities that help us conquer ill will, besides the Brahma Viharas, besides mindfulness, are what's called noble friendship and suitable conversation. So being here with Sangha and community and like-hearted, like-minded, intentioned people is part of what helps us to conquer ill will. Deeper states of meditation and concentration also help, and faith. Remembering that it is possible. It is possible for me, for you, to be free, to not react. It is possible. I know I've done it before. It is possible to respond, and have faith in that, and develop your faith in that. Yeah. This was an interesting little thing, just as we have a few moments here. Feel free to add any questions or comments here as I read this. So in that simile of it's like a pot of water boiling and seething water, it goes on to say one cannot properly So when one's mind is possessed by ill will in the same way, overpowered by ill will, one cannot properly see the escape from ill will, which has arisen, right? Because once we're in it, we can't, it's just such a strong energy. Then one does not properly understand and see one's own welfare. You can't see how harmful that's going to be, and nor that of another, nor that of both. And also, this is interesting, texts, that's hard to say, texts like written works that have been memorized a long time ago do not come into one's mind, not to speak of those not memorized. Isn't that interesting? Because this is a time when the teachings were learned by memorizing and by sharing, oral tradition. And so it's saying that ill will, aversion, uh, boil up the mind to such a state that you can't learn anything new and you can't remember what you've learned. Very true and interesting. The world doesn't want to be saved, it wants to be loved. Oh, good one, Monty. Yes. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. And then it goes on, that's how you save it. The world doesn't want to be saved, it wants to be loved, and that's how you save it. Interesting. Thanks for reminding us of that, Monty. So, no meditation on Saturday. I will be up north, and plus we're not doing Saturday meditations in August. Oh, tomorrow Coral is doing, she's like a student teacher, and tomorrow she's offering a joy meditation at noon on the True North Insight YouTube channel. So if you would like to feel, as I said tonight, mudita, joy, is one of the practices that is an antidote to ill will and aversion. So you might like to tune in for that practice at noon tomorrow, or you can watch it anytime after, right? All of these are recorded. You can watch anytime. But that might be a helpful practice in relation to this, if you're able, tomorrow at noon with Coral, their lovely teacher. And yeah, there you go. You're welcome, dear. Okay, thank you so much for being here, and good night, Terry and Patty and Monty and some other folks that I'm not sure who. Be kind, be gentle, forgive yourself, and begin again. Night.